In the small village of Okoma, there was a young girl named Kosi. She was kind-hearted and cheerful. She always helped her parents in the farm, and she spent the rest of the time she had left with her friends. Kosi was a girl full of dreams, but one day her life changed completely. She had fallen in love with a young man named Emeka. Kosi and Emeka spent time together secretly. They met by the riverside, sharing beautiful moments of love and laughter. One night, their love went too far, and soon Kosi realized she was pregnant. And to her shock, Emeka denied the pregnancy. In their village, getting pregnant out of wedlock was seen as a taboo, and everyone turned their eyes away from an unmarried pregnant woman. The news spread so fast, and soon enough, Kosi's parents found out she was pregnant. Her father was disappointed in her and couldn't bear the shame because he was a chief in the village. Her mother pleaded, but the villagers were unforgiving, and they decided to throw her out of their home. Kosi carried nothing but a few clothes, and her heart was heavy with shame. However, she wandered from place to place looking for shelter. Her friends turned their back on her, and every time she passed by, the young men and women of the village mocked her. They called her names, whispered behind her back, and laughed openly at her. Mothers warned their daughters never to follow the steps of Kosi, as she was seen as a failure and shame to the entire village. Nkechi, my pride, my crown, don't end up like Kosi. You hear me? Look at where foolishness has landed her. Shameless girl. Mama Nkechi tells Nkechi, her only daughter. The humiliation was unbearable, but she pressed on. She was driven by the growing life within her. Days went by, and just as Kosi was on the lane of giving up, a kind woman from a nearby village named Mama Olisa spotted her resting under the tree. She was looking weak and helpless. Mama Olisa had heard whispers about a young girl who had been abandoned, and her heart went out to her. Unknown to her, that was the same girl in front of her. She approached Kosi and gently asked her what had happened. As Kosi recounted her story, tears filled Mama Olisa's eyes. Unlike others, she didn't see Kosi as a sinner, but a young girl who had made mistakes and needed a helping hand. Without hesitation, she invited Kosi to come stay with her. Mama Olisa took Kosi in and cared for her like her own daughter. She made sure she had everything she needed, from nourishing meals to comfortable beddings. She stood by Kosi throughout her pregnancy. Months had passed, and when Kosi finally gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Mama Olisa rejoiced as if it were to be her own grandchild. She had lost her husband and 5 children to the cold hands of death, and for her, she would give anything to see Kosi happy again. She named the child Hope, and true to her name, she became a source of hope to Kosi. Baby Hope was a reminder that life could still be beautiful even after much hardship. However, with a baby to care for, Mama Olisa continued to provide for Kosi, giving her a chance to recover and plan for her future. When the time came, Mama Olisa enrolled Kosi in a tailoring shop. Kosi was a quick learner, and before long, she mastered the art of sewing. Mama Olisa, on seeing Kosi's potential, gifted her a sewing machine. With every stitch, Kosi's confidence grew, and so did her reputation. Her dresses were unique, and soon, people from the neighboring villages began coming to her shop, bringing fabrics and eagerly waiting to see the magic she made with her fingers. As her business blossomed, Kosi realized that the village was becoming too small for her dreams. She wanted to expand to reach a larger audience, and so she made a bold decision to move to the city. She shared her plans with Mama Olisa, who despite her sadness was incredibly proud of how far Kosi had come. She handed Kosi her life savings and prayed over her. Kosi promised to come back and fetch her daughter and Mama Olisa once she was settled in the city. With a heart full of ambition and a mind set on success, she set off, leaving hope behind with Mama Olisa. In the city, Kosi's talents took her far. Her dresses became the talk of the town, and soon she was mingling with the wealthy and influential. She owned big shops, wore the finest clothes, drove fancy cars, and bought a big mansion to complement her status. Kosi caught the eyes of a wealthy businessman who expressed his interest in marrying her. Over time, her old life started to fade away with its promises. Kosi became worried that if people knew about her daughter Hope, it would ruin her reputation. So she decided to bury the memory of Hope and Mama Olisa. She chose to live as if her past had never happened. Back in the village, Mama Olisa continued to care for Hope as if she were to be her own daughter. However, tragedy struck when Hope fell ill. Mama Olisa sold everything she had for Hope's treatment, but it wasn't enough. Her love for Hope knew no bound, so she made the difficult decision to travel to the city, praying she could find Kosi. With Hope wrapped in a blanket on her back, Mama Olisa traveled for days until she finally reached the city. When she arrived, finding Kosi was easier than expected. Kosi's name was everywhere. Her shops were filled with people who adored her work. However, what awaited Mama Olisa was far from the reunion she had hoped for. When she entered one of Kosi's shops, she was amazed at the wealth and elegance that surrounded her. And there stood Kosi, who was dressed in fine clothes, laughing and sipping wine with some high-profile clients. Trembling Mama Olisa called out to Kosi, "Kosi, my child." But when Kosi saw Mama Olisa, her expression changed immediately and her face was hardened. She looked at Mama Olisa and quickly glanced at the wealthy customers who were curiously watching, waiting for the scene to unfold. "Do I know you?" Kosi asked, her voice cold and distant. Mama Olisa's heart broke in that moment. "Kosi, it is me, Mama Olisa, the woman who took you in, who cared for you and your child." But Kosi cut her off immediately, shaking her head. "I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't have any child," Kosi said firmly. And before Mama Olisa could say another word, Kosi signaled two security guards, and to the horror of everyone, she asked them to throw Mama Olisa out of her shop. Mama Olisa pleaded, holding Hope tightly, trying to make Kosi see reasons with her, but Kosi wouldn't budge. She looked at Mama Olisa with eyes as cold as ice, denying her with every fiber of her being. She claimed Mama Olisa was one of those beggars who wanted to take advantage of the rich and wealthy people. The guards dragged Mama Olisa out of the shop, and when she tried to return, they called the police to throw her out of the shop. That day, Mama Olisa's cries echoed through the city streets, but they fell on deaf ears. Kosi had climbed the ladder of success and has lost her heart along the way. That night, as Mama Olisa sat on the steps of a building, holding the feverish Hope close to her chest, a deep sadness washed over her face. The child she had sacrificed everything for, whom she took in despite her condition, had turned her back on her. Yet, as she looked down at Hope, she knew her journey had not been in vain. For in her arms was a child who deserved all the love in the world, a child who had done nothing wrong but was the victim of a broken promise. Kosi continued to rise in the fashion world, while Mama Olisa returned back to the village with little hope. Years went by after that fateful incident, and Kosi's success continued to rise. She became even more wealthier, while her fashion empire expanded across the country, and her name was known in the highest of circles. She married a wealthy businessman, and she lived in a grand mansion filled with all the luxurious things anyone could ever desire. She was invited to the grandest parties. She hosted the most beautiful fashion events, and from the outside, it seemed as though Kosi had everything everyone could ever ask for. But behind the glitters and the glamour, there was a shadow. Kosi couldn't shake off the sense of emptiness that seemed to linger, no matter how much she achieved. She was surrounded by wealth, but every time she looked into a mirror, she felt something cold and hollow staring back at her. At night, she would lie awake. She was haunted by the memories of Mama Olisa, the pain and disbelief in her eyes as she was dragged out of her shop, and the memory of Hope's innocent and sickly looks as she was wrapped in Mama Olisa's arms. She pushed the thoughts away each time they surfaced, but they always came back, creeping back to her, stronger than before. One evening, at a high societal event, Kosi overheard a group of people talking about a new designer in town. She was a young woman with a style so unique and fresh that everyone wanted to wear her creations. Kosi was a very competitive woman who wasn't ready to allow anyone top the fashion chart outside of herself. She was curious and decided to investigate this new designer. The next day, she arranged to meet the new designer, whose name was Hope. When Hope walked into Kosi's office, it was like staring into a mirror of her younger self. The young woman was tall, graceful, and beautiful, with an air of quiet confidence. But what struck Kosi the most were Hope's eyes. They were familiar, too familiar. They were the same eyes she had seen on that tiny feverish baby held by Mama Olisa years ago. Kosi felt her chest tighten, but she maintained her composure, dismissing the similarity as mere coincidence. Hope, however, was quick to recognize Kosi. She has heard about the wealthy woman who had once been under Mama Olisa's care and who had abandoned them after making a name for herself in the city. But Hope's face betrayed no emotion as she introduced herself politely and presented her designs. However, their meeting went smoothly, and Kosi offered Hope a generous contract to work under her label, but Hope refused, saying she preferred to make her own name in the fashion world. Kosi was disappointed. No one had ever turned her offer down. However, she decided to brush it off, but the encounter left her unsettled. Over the following months, Hope's reputation grew, and her designs became overshadowed Kosi's designs. While Kosi's work was elegant and refined, Hope's creations were bolder, fresh, and very vibrant, capturing the hearts of the younger generation. Kosi's sales began to fall, and her clients started gravitating towards Hope. Desperate to keep herself standing, Kosi tried everything from copying Hope's designs to undercutting her prices, but nothing worked. Hope's popularity only continued to grow. One day, Kosi was unable to ignore the nagging feeling. She decided to investigate further. She hired a private investigator to look into Hope's background, and what she discovered shocked her. Hope was indeed the child she had abandoned years back. She was raised by Mama Olisa, who loved and cared for her. Kosi's heart sank as she read about Mama Olisa's struggle, how she had sacrificed her own well-being to give Hope a chance to good life. Kosi realized that Mama Olisa had given everything up for the child she had thrown away. Knowing this left Kosi shattered. She knew she couldn't hide from the truth any longer. She had abandoned and betrayed the very woman who had saved her and gave her everything good in life. For the first time, Kosi felt the full weight of her actions. The fame, the money, the luxury, it all felt meaningless now. Kosi was determined to make amends. She went to look for Mama Olisa, only to learn that she had passed away a year ago after falling ill herself and using her last savings to support Hope education. Kosi was heartbroken. She felt guilty for her actions, but it was too late. She was too blind to realize the treasure she had until she lost it. Kosi tried reaching out to Hope, sending her letters, flowers, and even going to her studio to apologize in person. But each time she tried, Hope refused to see her. She couldn't forgive the woman who had abandoned her and denied Mama Olisa in her lowest moments. Hope had seen Mama Olisa suffer, and that was her main motivation to succeed in life. She wanted to be there for her. She wanted to wipe her tears away and make her the happiest mother alive. But death snatched her away. Hope had no interest in reconciling with Kosi. Days turned into months, and the weight of Kosi's actions began to take toll on her. She lost her passion for her work. Her business was slowly crumbling as Hope's fame grew. Her husband, who had married her for her reputation and wealth, grew distant, and eventually he left her for a much younger woman. Her friends, who had been drawn to her for her success, faded away one by one. Kosi was left alone in her mansion with nothing but memory of what she had once had and what she had thrown away. Years later, Kosi was now old and alone. She went to one of Hope's fashion shows. She was hoping to catch a glimpse of her daughter. She sat in the back, hidden and watching as Hope took the stage to an amazed crowd. The young woman's face was radiant. Her smile was warm and genuine. She was a mirror of Mama Olisa's kindness. Kosi felt a bittersweet pride, knowing that her daughter had become everything she could ever dream of. After the show, Kosi tried to approach Hope one last time, believing that perhaps in her old age, her daughter would take pity on her and forgive her. But when Hope saw her, she simply looked at Kosi with a calm and detached gaze, and she said, "Madam Kosi, I don't hold anything against you, and I don't need you to feel guilty for anything. I have made a name for myself, just like you did for yourself. I won't forget Mama Olisa and the love she gave to me. She was the only mother I ever had and needed. Please, I would appreciate you never show yourself here again. Excuse me." With those words, Hope turned her back and walked away, leaving Kosi standing there, broken and filled with regret. Kosi returned to her empty mansion, the echoes of her past mistakes surrounding her. Her wealth and fame meant nothing now, and all she had left was the knowledge of the love she had thrown away. She spent each night reliving the choices she had made, knowing that no amount of money or success could ever fill the void she had created with her own heartlessness. Dear viewers, most times the choices we make have consequences, and betrayal can cost you everything. Learn to cherish those who stood by you in your darkest moments. Kindly share with us the lessons you picked from this story. Thank you for watching. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. And if you are new here, you are specially welcome. Please remember to like, share and subscribe for more interesting stories. Until we bring another story your way next time. Bye.